In this world, there are people known as ability users, not too different from wielders of powers. There are some of them born into the world this way, and their population is growing every year. Along with that, the number of crimes being committed by the empowered rose exponentially. Fortunately, in contrast to ability users with malicious intent, there are also those who possess goodwill and virtue. They call those who fight evil with their powers heroes, protecting the peace of the world with the blessings bestowed. They are admired and revered by the crowd they safeguard. However, this is not the normal story of a hero one is commonly accustomed to. On a huge screen along the streets, a newscaster reports the latest display of heroism in the city. Today, the peace of the city is once again protected by the heroes. Kazu walked along, forced to listen to these unending reports. Approaching a barricaded alley, he's warned about the dangers in that direction. Confused, he looks back to see who's talking to him. Hannah talked about the people who would do bad things to him, even with the abundant presence of heroes. He thanks her for being so kind, which she replies is just a way of calling forth good luck for herself. The young man doesn't believe in such karma, gods, or even in heroes. Realizing he's strange, she says people will think he's a bum for wandering in broad daylight, but he argues that a life spent working all day and night is too boring. With this, she curiously asks about his purpose for living. The question stumps him, and the silence reaffirms her words that he might really just be a good-for-nothing. As they haven't properly acquainted themselves with each other yet, she introduces herself, and he returns the gesture. She proceeds with her preaching and encourages him to work towards becoming a decent human being. Something catches his eye, but a hand had already reached out and grabbed Hannah's purse from her shoulder. She struggles and pulls back, not wanting to lose her possession, but he then takes out a knife. Kazu jumped in just in time to block his swing with his body. This leaves him with a big and deep gash on his arm. While he's fine, the more important problem is the thief, who is now running away with her belongings. Just then, they heard the loud rev of a motorcycle. The thief is surprised to see it rush past him and block his way. Riding it was a flashy-looking man, telling him off for being a terrible citizen and stealing things from others. It was Mac, the muscle hero, who has come to save the day. He's easily recognized by the crowd as one of the top-ranked enforcers who go against superpowered criminals. However, the criminal tells him not to get too arrogant and begins to take on a beastly form of his own. To him, heroes like that are nothing but frauds. With his werewolf powers, he pounced at the muscle man, who then tripled in size with unbelievable mass. Taking his head with a single hand, the strong hero smashed the evildoer into the pavement and raised his fist in triumph, symbolizing yet another victory for justice. While all this was happening, Hannah was still concerned about the injury Kazu received. To her surprise, the wound had already closed shut. It's his ability, although it might not be of much use except to become a human shield. As he played his power down, Mac approached and called him a true hero. In fact, he's so impressed that he invites them into his home for a free meal. She believes that her kindness was finally coming around. Although he plays along, Kazu's reaction was much less excited. The two arrive at a lavish mansion as promised. There, they were served a scrumptious dinner and exchanged small talk with the hero. Hannah was basically drooling over the plates of food, so she's told to slow down and savor as much as she wants to. However, her vision suddenly began to blur and fade. The poor girl had no idea what was happening, but her eyelids gradually became heavy until they closed shut completely. They later opened, brought back with her consciousness, but she screamed in shock when she realized she could not move. Max smiled over her with a sleazy stare, saying it was time for the plot, and adding that there's no one coming no matter how loudly she screams. As he placed himself close to her, she questioned how a hero could do such a thing. The frightened look on her face was irresistible to him, especially as she cried and begged for anyone to come help. It seemed like all hope was lost until a familiar figure suddenly kicked Mac across the face. Despite his mask, the strike sent him tumbling across the floor. He looked around in utter disbelief and anger. All they could see for now was a silhouette under the moonlight. Hannah thinks it's a real hero, but it's just the bum and good-for-nothing Kazu. The evil hero doesn't understand how he's awake despite the sedative he ate. Freeing the girl, he says he never did and merely pretended to be under its effects. It's a shocking revelation, and the victims still can't believe that a hero was committing such atrocities. Believing in such a fairy tale at this point was just foolishness. As she's clinging to how he really did save her earlier, Kazu takes it upon himself to show her the true face of her idols. The idea that a hero is an ally of justice is a complete sham propagated by the people and the media. To prove it wrong, he kicks down a wall and reveals several other people, all evidently victimized and held captive. It was horrific. Ability users are neither gods nor saints, but people with a few scum mixed inside. Chuckling at his righteous speech, Max says he risks his life every day to take down dangerous criminals, so it's only natural for women to want to reward him with their bodies. As expected, his ability is wicked, and it's time to see it truly in action. Kazu dashed in and thrust at the enemy's body with a blade, but it didn't even graze his tough skin. As payback for the foolish mistake, Mac unleashes a powerful punch that sends him crashing into a wall. Watching him fall over, the hero laughed at the idea that such a puny toy could hurt him. He also knew about the young man's ability, but questioned what good it was going to do and drove the blade through his hand. Kazu screamed in pain, punished for thinking that a low-tier human like him could go against him. While this might be true, it's also a fact that heroes are nothing but pieces of scum. Fortunately, he's just the perfect person to deal with all of that. The scarlet liquid flowing from his wounds began hardening and turned into a weapon as part of his power. Forming a blade and covering his face, he finally revealed his true ability. Mac is unfazed, believing the boy still has no chance against him. However, the next slash cuts deep across his chest this time around. He couldn't believe it. It should be impossible for a hero like him to lose. Moving on, sheer pride alone, he catches and grips his opponent's arm tight and swings to slam his head right into the floor. Just then, a sharp set of teeth sank into his shoulder, piercing deep into his flesh. His knees hit the floor helplessly, unable to do anything while Kazu menacingly glared. He begged for his life, but the young man had no intention of taking it anyway. Hearing this, Mac considers him a fool and tries to launch a sneak attack, but his weak fist is caught with ease. His power wasn't working, and he had lost his large muscles completely. Saying he'll never use his ability again, Kazu breaks the skinny man's arm. Later on, the hero sat there, shaking helplessly, and recognized the impossible power that belonged to the legendary vampire lord. Ignoring him and addressing Hannah's earlier question about his purpose, the anti-hero walked towards his enemy and socked him right across the face. They will vanish from the world as he lives to erase their very existence with his own hands. Kazu reports that the target had been eliminated and that Mac was just as disgusting as others. He didn't kill him, but without his abilities, his days as a hero are over. The man on the phone couldn't believe that he can take the abilities of others, but an explanation to that might cost him his life. Moving on, the young man shares that he still hasn't found what he's looking for. Now they just have to wrap things up cleanly on both ends as they have to leave the place soon. After all, staying in one spot for too long won't do them any good. After asking for a room and ending the call, the exhaustion finally set in and he felt his knees, nearly passing out from overexerting himself during the battle. A voice from within calls him foolish for not draining the enemies when he should be sucking them dry. He argues that nullifying their powers is enough unless he wants to be scum like them. While he's allowed to stick to his ideals, Rascal reminds him about his one true purpose, which he's well aware of. With this, he stands back up despite the pain. The person he's looking for isn't there either, and he can't help but wonder just where Saya was. 3 years ago, he was back at home while his younger sister was gladly showing him her new trick. She was undeniably skilled with her abilities, and at such a young age, the girl wants to grow up soon and become a hero just like her father. Kazu smiled at her, who he said was completely different from him. Refusing the comparison, she clung and convinced him to join their path, but he doubted that such a simple ability like his could even compare. She refused to accept it, calling him kind and strong enough, but he knew that he couldn't be a hero with such a weak ability. In the end, she couldn't say anything. With her sadness apparent, he says he's more than content with having a little sister he can brag about. Their days were filled with laughter, but one night, Kazu got up from bed after hearing nearby banging. The noise soon got closer, and his father's body eventually crashed in through the window. Despite the shards, the old man tumbled across the hard floor, beaten half to death by the intruders. Another man walked in, impressed by the hero's skill and persistence despite his old age. Kazu screamed and questioned if they're criminals with abilities, but is told that they're heroes, just like his father. While the boy struggled to comprehend it, a dazed Saya entered the room. Woken up by all the noise, she's shocked to see the destruction that was ensuing. Refusing to allow her to become a victim, Kazu's father tells him to run away with his sister. He turned to his enemies and questioned what happened to their pride as protectors. Where did the justice inside them go? They despised that justice and argued that the old man was in this situation because of it. The children are then told to never become heroes, as the heroes of this era are rotten to the core. Moving past their stunned expressions, he cast his ability and imbued his hand with the power of light. He tells his children to live straight lives and charges at his enemy, but a merciless hand pierces right through his chest, ending him on the spot. Kazu screamed at the sight. On the other hand, The man summoned blue flames onto his palm, aiming to burn the brats until not a single shred of evidence remains. His power does not die out until it's turned its target into ash. Just then, he's interrupted and hit by an odd light. Seeing Saya use such a power at such a young age piques his interest. She was already panting in exhaustion, but the sheer talent and potential might turn her useful soon. The little girl is knocked out cold and carried despite his brother's cries. There was nothing he could do while the heroes took his sibling. He clung to their legs and screamed, but was just mercilessly kicked away and sent crashing into the hard wall. Since he's so useless and weak, he should at least be taken out fast. The blue flames engulfed his body, ready to turn it into nothing but charred remains, all for justice. Kazu couldn't accept what was happening. His father, who was always so kind, just died a meaningless death, and even his beloved sister was taken away. Still burning, he cursed heroes and swore to never forgive them. Revenge was going to come soon. Rascal loved the fire in his heart. Hearing the vampire's voice for the first time surprised the boy, and he looked around to see where it was coming from. Was it coming from his father's study room? Among the neatly organized books and files, an ominous energy emanates. Right inside the drawers was a hidden box, covered completely in shamanistic bindings. He tore right through them and unhesitatingly opened. A skull spoke to him, introducing himself as a vampire lord whom humans once feared the most. As with many other things, Kazu couldn't believe what was happening. There was a legendary vampire who terrorized humanity just a century ago. The heroes should have destroyed him, so why was his body in the office of the father? Apparently, the remains were placed under the care of the era's strongest hero. The vampire was reading his mind and awakened by the powerful thirst for revenge burning inside the boy. He couldn't deny it, especially as he remembered his family. Even after 100 years have passed, Rascal's resolve hasn't waned a single bit. Now, the boy is given the choice to lament and die pitifully or take the vampire's remains and become an avenger. Kazu knows he isn't supposed to trust those words, but he sought strength. As such, he took the bones onto his hands and slowly consumed the ash piece by piece. With this, the pact was sealed and their connection was finalized. The boy is given the power of the wretched heroes, and all he has to do is reach his enemies and deliver their end. Because of the vampire, his appearance changed, and he vowed to kill every last hero in the world. Kazu walked to his new home, disappointed as he still hadn't found sign of Saya. The apartment was as simple as it could be, but he wasn't going to be staying long anyway. Just then, his neighbor walked out of her door and welcomed the newcomer with a bashful tone. He froze in absolute shock. Standing in front of him was a woman who looked identical to his missing sister. Informed beforehand and already expecting the new neighbor, the woman introduces herself as Layla and asks for his name. Although still flustered, he manages to give a reply, which she responds with a warm smile. She looks just like Saya, but it's impossible for her to be the same person. He's asked if there's something on her face as he keeps on looking. The yearning brother gets a hold of himself and says she looks like someone he knows. With that aside, she notices something by the street. A bunch of police cars were racing through the road, likely caused by an ability user nearby. Fortunately, there are many heroes in the city who could take care of it. He advises her against relying on them too much, especially given the recent events. She knows exactly what he was talking about, as just the other day, Max's crimes were revealed and reported to the city on public television. Either way, it's better to be safe than sorry. With a reassuring smile, Layla promises to run to his room in case anything happens to him, reiterating that she's being completely serious about looking out for each other. After accepting her offer, he watches her go on with her day, silently deciding to do a little digging. Students filled the streets as the school day was about to start. Kazu quietly trailed behind his neighbor, observing to see anything suspicious. Still watching her inside the school, he jots a few things down, but there are no red flags to note so far. That said, he can't help but be reminded of Saya whenever he sees her smile. Later on, she walked with another student who apologized for bothering her with her problems. While assuring her that it isn't a bother at all, they finally come across a burly-looking man asking why he was called and who the girl beside the student is. Layla placed herself between them and told the thug to stay away from her friend. After all, he must be the one forcing her to work shady jobs at night. He's angered by the girl who's sticking her nose into other people's business. Staring her down and looking like he's about to attack, she suddenly smacks him hard across the face and asks if she's involved in their business enough now. Enraged, he curses and moves to hit back. Kazu appeared just in time to stop his fist from reaching her face, surprising both the girl and the thug who questioned who he was. He claims to just be someone passing through, infuriating the man even more. He was about to throw another punch but couldn't as the grip around his fist tightened so much that he screamed in absolute pain. Finally getting his arm locked, he's ordered to stop involving himself with the young girls and kicked pathetically to the curb. The man glares at them, understanding that their arrogance comes from getting a new bodyguard. He runs away, telling them to remember that day. Left in peace, the two students thank their savior for helping them out, but they're told not to go overboard with their justice as they might regret it someday. Layla can't help but frown at the idea, since she doesn't want to be someone who turns a blind eye after seeing trouble right in front of her. Despite his warning, he smiles upon realizing how fine she is. What's more, she's worried about the thug from earlier coming back for revenge. He tells them to run away when that happens, as he won't always be there to help. His straightforward nature makes her giggle in amusement, and the three are finally allowed to go about their day. Meanwhile, at the Go Cooking Group's headquarters, the thug from earlier cursed the brats who messed with him this afternoon. Scanning the office, he's surprised to see Ace, a young hero rising in the ranks. The charismatic man was staring right back at him when a firm hand suddenly gripped his shoulder. He's told not to worry about it, and to forget that he even saw anything in the room. A little while later, the hero left the headquarters and walked in the night where a familiar voice called to him. He sees a sinister sight of sticky red liquid from the alley forming and gardening into a scarlet blade. Kazu emerges from the dark and asks what the hero was doing there so late at night. A quick slash cuts through Aces and GT, forcing it open and causing countless bills of money to fly. The hero got ready for a fight to silence the enemy who saw what they're doing. Back in the headquarters, the thug tells his boss about the students who blabbed about them. He wants to teach them a painful lesson, but the boss doesn't care and is more concerned about his relatively thin earnings. Not valuing his apology, he orders the lackey to bring the girls from earlier and make them earn their keep. Just then, a white figure appeared from outside, several stories above the ground. She crashes through the window and shocks the men inside. A daring hero had suddenly appeared before them. The thugs take their guns out and make it rain bullets, but she easily dodges each one. Maneuvering around them, she unleashes a barrage of accurate and powerful strikes, taking all the thugs down within seconds. The only one left is the man preying on Layla and her friend, who is now claiming to have been threatened. He even asks for help, insisting that he isn't one of them, but that doesn't matter to her. After all, evil starts small, and a hero's purpose is to stop it before it grows into something monstrous. Evil deserves to be judged, and who better to do that than her? The police arrive, and she reports that the suppression mission was complete. She had already taken care of everything, and they were clear to breach. Taking her helmet off to reveal familiar pink hair, she and Kazu say the same thing. They'll never forgive those they deem as the scum of the earth, and will crush them with their own hands. Kazu arrives at a small cafe and takes a seat while ordering a breakfast set. Seeing him yawn, OG, the cafe owner and his information broker, says he must be tired from fighting a hero. He confidently says that this isn't really his problem, but is reminded to stay sharp at all times. Taking a steaming cup of coffee, he argues that it isn't confidence, but resolve from the moment they decided to risk their lives. Moving on to the next matter, he says he'd like to avail of the broker's investigative services and slides a photo of his new neighbor. The old man looks at her photo of the pink-haired girl, wondering if there's something with her. Kazu frankly shares that she reminds him of his sister, a woman OG knows well as he's been looking for her for a long time. He's sure Layla isn't his sister, but can't ignore the coincidence nonetheless. Not done yet. He'd also like the broker to look at another person. It's the thug from before who might come back to hurt them. He knows the man quite well and turns the TV on to show something. A news broadcast was on and reporting about the fall of crime syndicates lately. As it continued to cover the police's actions, the television showed a live feed of the thug in handcuffs. Kazu personally dealt with Ace, who was involved in crime with the Go Cooking gang. Among those arrested was the man he's looking for. It's odd that the person Layla got in trouble with was caught that very day. OG accepts the order to investigate the girl, but in turn has something to ask of the vigilante as well. He's told to take a look at some information on his phone. It's about Eden, a nightclub being run by a hero named Light. The activities inside were obviously illicit. Lately, its young patrons keep going broke, left a wreck both mentally and physically. Unlike usual cases, this isn't just about alcohol and women. In fact, the rumor being sold is that one can live their ideal dream there. This basically means that it's related to drugs. There's no solid proof yet, and that's exactly what OG wants him to find. Things might change depending on what he uncovers. Understanding it completely, Kazu took his coat and left the cafe prepared to wipe any rotten heroes out himself. He heads to Club Eden that very night and is met with countless partygoers dancing under the strobe lights. The music was blasting loud, and he could barely hear anything, but continued to try and gather as much information as he could. It was terrible, and he couldn't make any progress on his work. That said, OG wouldn't have asked for help in the first place if it was going to be easy. A particularly young woman suddenly catches his eye. To his surprise, it was Layla, who he never expected to be in such a place. He can only hope that she isn't caught up in crime. Right when he was about to ask more questions, a firm hand then gripped his shoulder. A bouncer looming over him asks the visitor to follow him somewhere. Not even pushing back, he does as told and arrives at the president's room. With the young man brought over as ordered, Light praised his bouncer and stared forward. First, he asks who Kazu is and what business he has in his club. He insists that he just came as a regular customer, but is told that he's too twitchy to throw a lousy lie. To make things go smoother and faster, he informs him that the man behind is a special powered type. It's quite a strange shop that even employs powerful ability users. Brushing it off as just a special case of hiring a bodyguard, the hero heads back to business and questions his purpose for coming. Kazu blatantly says that he's looking for a substance that can let him see his dreams. Without missing a beat, Light completely denies the idea that they're selling drugs. He rejects the offer for a blank check, reiterating that they're a clean establishment. Regardless of how much he's begging, it's still a hard no. But the hero argues that he doesn't look like someone begging in the first place. With this, Kazu is finally asked to leave, which he does immediately. The bouncer is told to look into him. A few minutes later, Light donned his hero suit and got ready to join the real party. Following along, another butler asks if they really need to wear suits inside the bar. He, like all other heroes, is someone everybody trusts and adores. Because of that, he can open a secret path into a hidden room, and people will still walk in without fear just because of his presence. Descending deeper into his club, he reaches the doors to a VIP room and brightly greets everyone who is waiting for his arrival. The place was filled with smoke, all coming from the high guests who were lounging around. They all clamored upon seeing Light, excited and rushing to bow to him. Wads of cash were raised high as they asked to get the drugs right away. He caressed the ladies who were clinging to him, calling them cute lambs and promising to give them more of the good stuff if they make a lot of money. Just then, the joyous atmosphere is interrupted by a man crawling on the ground. Drooling with a sunken face, he reached up and begged for drugs. He promises to get money to pay soon, but being touched by a penniless commoner only served to irk the hero. Light smacks him across the face, telling him to sell himself or steal cash then. With this, the butler is told to get rid of the man and fetch a new victim from upstairs. Donning a big and warm smile, he tells everyone else to always bring some money. There's a sudden and unexpected noise from the other side of the door. Thinking it's the new victim brought by his butler, Light happily opens the door to greet them, but is instead met with Kazu's demonic face asking if he's going to treat him well. The hero is shocked, unable to understand how he even found this place, and is told that he just asked nicely. The anti-hero raised the bodyguard from earlier, whose face was now beaten purple and swollen. The people were shocked by the sight of the bouncer on the floor and ran for their lives as soon as they realized that they were under attack. On the other hand, Light remained and asked what game he was playing. Did he just want drugs, money, or something else? Kazu points his blade and confirms that he's the one who's been hunting heroes recently. Seeing his odd weapon, the hero then takes his own sword and shares that his power is named Flash. He charges his nerves and cells with electricity, allowing him to move several times faster than any normal man. It isn't normal to reveal an ability's details to an enemy, especially in the middle of a fight, but he can't do anything about it anyway. Kazu witnesses his speed for the first time and can barely block the attack in time. Even Light is surprised that he managed this, albeit with difficulty. However, he can't be lumped in with the other hero wannabes he's hunted before. The swing is blocked once again, but a follow-up kick hits him hard across the face, sending him tumbling across the floor. He's a great fighter in general, not just with swords, but the costume must be confusing. After all, appearance is important if he wants to set himself apart from the rest of the crowd. Asked if he's just a hero for fame and praise, he rejects it and frankly admits that he's doing it for the money. Kazu's pretentious purpose of delivering real justice is also questioned. It's laughable, almost hypocritical. The anti-hero denies it, saying he isn't a fraud like them. Despite the accusation, Light accepts that saying justice is determined by whoever wins. Another lightning fast strike comes, and it's a seemingly unending barrage this time around. It's the first time Kazu has been pushed back this much, proving just how strong the opponent really is. Just then, Rascal's voice echoed in his mind, noting his struggle and offering to lend some of his power. All he has to do is seek and feed his hatred, as the fire of his vengeance is the true root of his power. If he surrenders his body, the vampire lord can end the battle in the blink of an eye. Kazu silences his enemies from inside and out, vowing to finish things on his own. The crack in his stability is a chance, and Light doesn't miss the opportunity to break his blade with it. A big slash cuts across his chest, and the young man suddenly found himself kneeling on the floor. His wounds are no longer clotting, and he could no longer maintain his ability. It's a shame that he threw such talent to oppose him when he surely would have made a strong hero. Kazu argues that talent isn't what he has, it's obsession. Obsession to bring down the so-called heroes. He swallowed every humiliation and threw away his humanity to hone his own body. The hard work he poured into his goal is nothing as shallow as mere talent. Light acknowledges his grit and determination to fight even after he's lost his weapon. In response, he'll raise his blade and cut his obsession himself. As sharp as his sword is, the hero couldn't pull it back from his target, who's using his wound to stop him from running away. With this, Kazu is free to strike him across his face and force him to let go of his weapon as well. Light is confused at first, but realizes that his opponent risked losing his arm just to do it. He doesn't care, of course. If losing limbs scares someone, then they shouldn't even fight in the first place. A small cut is nothing compared to the pain he felt on that tragic day. That said, he was acting pretty tough for someone who was about to drop. He can't even stop his wound from gushing out, meaning his ability is shot. In contrast, his flash speed is as sharp as ever, and as mentioned, he's strong even without a weapon. Light charged in knowing exactly what his enemy was aiming for. He's likely going to aim for a counterpunch when he's close enough, so he'll rob him of the opportunity by dodging fast as soon as he lands a hit. The strike hits Kazu's head as planned, and now it was time to disappear in the blink of an eye. However, he found that he was stuck. He shook and struggled, unable to pull his fist away from his target's head. Like before, the anti-hero was using his ability as adhesive and latching onto the hand. This leaves Light vulnerable for another heavy punch that's strong enough to send him crashing into the wall. It nearly knocks him out. Kazu allowed his wound to flow on purpose to bait him into letting his guard down. While the hero's body still sparked with power, his breathing grew ragged. Finally understanding his opponent's obsession, he finally went limp and completely lost consciousness. A few hours later, the police arrived at Club Eden and were surprised to find a drug den right under a hero's bar. Layla was there again, unable to believe that a peer would sink so low. However, there was a more important matter at hand. She's well aware that Light is no slouch in a fight, meaning the enemy is regardably strong. It's true that the heroes are sketchy, but this confirms that there's someone actively hunting them down. Unfortunately, she can't allow such a dangerous person to be running in the streets, so she has to take matters into her own hands and catch him herself. The tumultuous fight with Light left Kazu with many injuries. So much so that Rascal mocks him and says he should just slaughter them all. However, the young man is intent on leaving his enemies alive. If he just entrusts his body to the vampire, he can have his revenge without breaking a sweat. He's sick of listening to his goading and intends to keep using his power, but is told that he can't even use it to the fullest even after all this time. Irritated, Kazu punches and shatters his mirror, and is reminded that he can call to him anytime if he changes his mind. He thinks about the Lord's words. 2 years ago, he was in the woods and practicing with his new abilities. He was focusing on holding the shape of his blood together. For starters, he summons a small dagger onto his palms, but merely gripping in is enough to make it lose its shape. Rascal mocks him for failing to make a decent weapon when it's been half a year since they met. Amused, he offers to send the heroes to their doom with his own hands. Flatly rejecting it, Kazu asks about the ability stealing powers he talked about. Those whose blood he sucks lose those powers, which is also why he's called a calamity vampire. He can't exactly use what he takes, but it basically becomes nourishment for his body. Once drained, a person completely loses their ability. In fact, it's quite amusing to see the faces of the panicked heroes as they realize what's happening. He can say whatever he wants, but if Kazu can't control his newfound skills, he can't fight the heroes and save Saya. Exhausted from just materializing the dagger, he loses consciousness and falls on his face. Later on, he finds a couple of kids looking at him, worried that he isn't okay. He gets up for now, thinking he must have been knocked out from overexertion. The children offer him some water to drink and ask if he's some kind of hero. Rejecting the idea, he then wonders what they were doing there. They were told to head there after bad men came to attack their village. Those men barged in and took all the crops and fruits they harvested. While the adults want to resist, they're powerless as the men threaten to ruin their fields. Desperate, the boy asks why the heroes won't come and help them. Their conversation is interrupted as a bunch of men approached, targeting stray women from the village. The children started to panic. One bandit thinks the girl is too young, but the vile leader says her age is perfect. They then see Kazu put himself between them. Eager to get him out of the way, one placed his hand on the ground and willed plants to sprout from the ground. Although they were small at first, the plant enlarged into a dangerous being that shot seed bullets at its targets. One managed to hit and wound the young man, who was playing guardian to the children. As he's told to sit quietly, more plants sprout out to latch onto his body and pin him to the ground. With him immobilized, the thug pulls on the girl hard. The scene reminds Kazu of the time his sister was taken, and like before, he's powerless yet again. Determined to stop the heinous crime from happening in front of him, he cuts the plant apart with his red blade, much bigger than the dagger earlier. Realizing that he's an ability user as well, the evil man stops holding back and shoots another wave of bullets. However, they simply bounce off the target this time around. Kazu charged right at his target and impaled the hand that was connected to the ground, keeping it there. As a last-ditch effort, the man threatens to make the village fields wither, which is the worst thing he could have said. The vampire bared his fangs and sunk down on his body, draining him of his ability bit by bit until nothing was left. In shock, the others vowed to make him pay for it and rush off with their leader in their hands. Rascal was furious as he let a target escape, right when he was finally showing promise. As usual, Kazu refuses to be drawn in and is satisfied with draining his abilities. On the other hand, the boy was terrified and shielded his sister while telling their savior to stay back. He's told to forget heroes altogether and become strong enough to protect the people he cares about. With that final message, he walked away. Now, he sat in his room and summoned the sword, which he had been honing since that day, to fight his enemies. No matter what happens, he's determined to save Saya from evil. Late at the Hero Alliance headquarters, Layla was on the computer. There was a high chance that the person who attacked the bar came as a guest at first. She scans the surveillance cameras and sees a familiar person. Rewinding and zooming in, she takes a closer look and realizes who she saw. Back at home, Kazu runs into Layla right as the sun is setting. He makes sure to be cautious of his words, as she might be connected to the heroes. Trying to act normal, he brightly asks if she's coming from school, but her reply is surprisingly curt compared to her usual mood. Even her gaze was different, so much so that he wonders if she was suspecting him. To his surprise, she suddenly asks if he'd come shopping with her on his day off. She blushes and says that she'd like a guy's opinion on a birthday gift for her dad. It's unexpected, but he accepts the request nonetheless. So, they decide on a time and place to meet up soon. Watching her close the door behind her, he stood awkwardly, confused as to what just happened. Inside, Layla sighed hard, thinking and hoping that he isn't a bad person. However, she still can't let her guard down and is prepared to expose him if necessary. The weekend of their meeting comes, and she appears with a pretty and dainty outfit. With this look, Kazu is reminded of Saya even more. Realizing he's staring, he brushes it off and says she looks cute, making her wonder if he's hitting on her so openly. The young man bashfully denies it, but she's fortunately kidding and drags him away to start their shopping spree. They walk through the crowded mall. He tries a bunch of things on and even helps her pick a few clothes to buy for herself. It's a fairly fun and light day, which both of them enjoy to the fullest. While having some ice cream at the park, she thanks him for helping pick the perfect gift. He doesn't look like a villain to her, but why were his eyes so lonely? After brushing it off for now, she sees someone flick a cigarette onto the ground and suddenly shouted at them. A bunch of burly-looking delinquents looked back, but she didn't back off and told them to pick up the cigarette they tossed. They refused to listen to a little girl's scolding, making her shake with anger. As it's a park meant for kids as well, she pulled her hand back, ready to serve justice with her own fists. Getting an idea of what's going to happen, Kazu stopped her fist and walked forward, making her wonder if an ability was making him confident. It was finally her chance to see what he can do. Teaching him a lesson to stop showing off, a man throws a punch, but misses wide when he dodges to the side. It was the perfect opportunity to throw a counter. However, he slips on some ice cream on the ground and falls on his butt. They laugh at his pathetic attempt at heroism, but are told to look behind them. The laughing stops when they realize that there were police officers watching. While the authorities handled it, Layla helped Kazu, who was embarrassed to death by the uncool slip. She argues that she's just thankful for the thought and for his help shopping. This time, he's the one who has a favor, but it's just helping him shop for new pants, as his were soiled by the ice cream he fell on. His awkwardness makes him chuckle. Later on, the two reach home and thank each other for everything they did. In the end, everything wrapped up without any trouble, but she still has something she wants to ask before parting. He brightly opens up, but his smile is replaced with a shocked expression when she asks if he was at Club Eden just a few days ago. Before he could answer, her phone pinged with a notification, so she fished through her bag to find it. His gaze was still in waiting. Finally, she straightforwardly asks if he's a hero. Layla bowed in apology and admitted that she thought Kazu was a villain hunting heroes. He's surprised by the idea, so she apologizes again for having such a ridiculous misunderstanding. Suddenly, she felt a sinister energy as he reached over to her, but he just patted her head and reassured her that it wasn't a problem. Warmed by his kind nature, she smiles and says she looks forward to becoming good neighbors. He watched her leave, silently repeating her words. Later on, he heads over to the usual cafe. Aji was just about to close, but realizes who his guest is. Kazu asks about his request. He couldn't find anything conclusive about Layla, and it felt like all the data about her was planted. In fact, he might have a better idea since they spent an entire day together. She was suspecting him of being a villain. Fortunately, the thugs they planted earlier put on a great performance, and they essentially did their job and cleared her suspicions. He still isn't sure why, but her expression changed all of a sudden after checking her phone. A hero was attacked and was badly injured around noon. Since he was with her all day and couldn't have possibly done it, Layla was assured that he's innocent. Still, he shouldn't drop his guard in the slightest, and more importantly, he shouldn't think that she can take his sister's place. Well aware, he's ready to eliminate her if she ever stands in the way of his goal. Nodding with the assurance, Aji hands him a file containing information on their next target. Her name is Rian, also known as Chameleon, who's suspected of manufacturing the drugs. Investigation shows that the meds trail leads to a hero, which circles back to her. Kazu infiltrates their research facility, pretending to be a janitor to check the target and her pharmaceutical company. He moves past the guard, who barely glances as he thanked him for his service. Caution was imperative since there seems to be someone targeting heroes aside from him. While looking at the location of the target, he walks past another researcher, who suddenly turned and held a syringe in his hand. The man tries to lodge it down his shoulder, but Kazu easily catches it and kicks him far away. He flipped back to put some distance between them. Asked what he's doing, he says he was running short on experimental subjects and came up to take one. With his confirmation that it isn't a legitimate company, the vampire summons his sword, but his identity as an ability user only excites the researcher, who wants a valuable subject. Watching his arm morph into a beastly appendage, Kazu realizes that he must be dealt with, even if he isn't the primary target. He charges in and their weapons clash, but the surprisingly hard arm deflects the blade away. The man is amused by the sharp attack and wants to see more, but his enemy doesn't have time to waste on someone like him. Leading with a reckless charge, Kazu swings his weapon and ends up getting blocked again. However, it isn't the same move as he suddenly liquefies his weapon, allowing it to splatter all over the scientist's face. He takes the opening provided by the surprise attack and circles around his enemy to lock his limbs from behind. With his movements completely stopped, he was free to take his abilities away. Kazu opened his jaws and drove his teeth into the man's shoulders, draining him of every drop of his power. While he fell to the ground, limp and unmoving, there was another ability user in the facility. A man was raised off the ground by the neck, begging to be let go, but she had no intention of releasing a disgusting human so easily. She slams him onto the ground and kicks him to the wall. Just then, her ears perked up, hearing another intruder aside from her. Regardless of who or what they are, Sarah was confident that someone as beautiful as her could easily clean the trash in the world. Rian went on with her research work as usual, when a lab assistant suddenly barged in, bringing the test subject he was told to collect. Following her orders, he pushes the bed into the lab. She soon comes in as well, ready to get started with the experiment. When she pulls the blankets down, she's shocked to find her assistant knocked out cold and placed as a dummy. A red blade was suddenly inches from her neck as Kazu first confirmed her identity as the chameleon hero. Turning back, she sees his seething glare and realizes that he's the one who defeated Light. He accuses her of manufacturing illegal drugs, but she argues that she's just bringing people a bit of happiness. While he considers it a loser's excuse, they surprisingly agree that heroes are nothing but a facade for thick-skinned liars who are willing to take everything they want. He warns her against taking another step, but it's not her she needs to worry about. The man from before suddenly jolted up and grabbed his hand. His arms are caught by the unexpected movement, allowing Rand to step back to a safer distance. She orders her assistant to crush his power, but his limbs merely shake helplessly. They had no idea why, but he couldn't use his ability. Kazu capitalizes on the confusion and kicks the enemy away. As he crashed into his boss, the intruder says he's well aware of just how fond of ambushes heroes are. The woman kicked her good-for-nothing lackey in frustration and took her coat off to enter the battle. After all, she was getting bored of research anyway. Her skin was covered with green, reptilian scales. Now, it was time to remember the feeling of catching criminals as a hero. She reveals her whip and starts circling it around herself. To his surprise, her entire weapon suddenly disappeared from his sight. While he was still grasping the situation, the invisible whip hit his face with a loud and heavy smack. He's mocked for failing to see such a straightforward attack, but he was already trying to make sense of it with a cool head. This is her ability. She can make herself and everything she touches disappear. It's finally her turn to play, and she intends to torment him until he begs. Willing to play along with her games, he snaps his fingers and scatters droplets of blood across the room. As soon as it hits the whip's body, he moves in to grab it and drag the weapon away from her hand. The hero lets go without much of a fight and says he's much better than she expected him to be. As she walks forward, he asks if she expects him to back down. However, she's more interested in his reason for targeting and hunting heroes. Inches away, she reached out and offered to help. Even if his goal was revenge, she knows about his power to erase whomever he wants. Even more surprising, she seems informed about Rascal and the gift he must have bestowed onto him. If he lets her study his ability, she'll do whatever she can to assist in his revenge. Something sharp is swiftly grabbed from the air, and her offer is promptly refused. After all, Kazu can't have a collaborator stabbing him in the back all the time. And noticing the second whip wasn't part of her plan, so she quickly let it go and ran away again. She'll be forgiven no matter what, as that's what it means to be a hero. They both know that he's exhausted and won't win in a drawn-out fight. However, a foot suddenly burst through the wall and interrupted their fight. A familiar silhouette spoke from the other side, apologizing for getting between their ugly scheming. Told to reveal herself, Sarah stepped into the light with a haughty and confident smile, saying the beautiful her has arrived to do some cleaning. While a woman sat on the park bench, observably troubled, another passed by and took a seat beside her, wanting to hear her story. Apparently, her fiancé volunteered for a hero's drug trial and hasn't regained consciousness yet. According to the company and the hero, it's unrelated and they aren't liable in any way. The public won't believe her either, especially with the hero involved. Feeling pity for her, Sarah gets up to confirm the facts and promises to clean them up if necessary. The woman is surprised to find someone that believes her. It's ridiculous to think that a hero won't do anything wrong. After all, the only thing that's always right in the world is her beauty. After following that trail, she's now arrived at the research lab to clean them up as promised. It was a confusing scenario for the two who didn't expect another ability user to show up all of a sudden. Kazu remembers the news about another hero being attacked while he was shopping with Liella. He connects the dots and realizes that it must be her. Regardless, the uninvited guests were nothing but eyesores to Ryan. Sarah surveils the situation and sets her eyes on her original target. There's another ability user, unexpected but a good opportunity. Intending to dispose of the weakling first, she moves with unbelievable speed and bounces from wall to wall, eventually pouncing at Kazu. He dodges at first and decides against showing mercy to someone coming at him. Her foot hits his hands before he could finish his swing, forcing him to let go of his weapon. She spins and kicks his defenseless body away. But given how he manages to stand his ground without falling, she realizes that he isn't just another small fry to take care of. The leopard woman's movements are far too irregular to read. While this was happening, Ryan concluded that the two intruders must not be allies. If she stays hidden, they'll take each other out and she can just finish off who's left. However, Sarah sees her vanish with her powers. She might be a chameleon, but the beast won't let her get away so easily. Her next kick is sharp and strong, so much so that her heel is driven deep into the wall. The researcher is stunned, unable to comprehend its strength and accuracy. Meanwhile, the missed attack is merely chuckled at. Ryan believes that it must be her ears. Given her ability, the woman is probably using her heightened hearing to track her movements. The other isn't moving, likely wary of her invisibility as he's experienced it before. As such, she reveals herself and asks the newcomer if she also seeks revenge on a hero. It's not too on the nose, but it's close enough. She can't stand heroes and is an ally to the powerless who are in need of justice. Money isn't even part of the equation, so she's asked if she's another one who claims to deliver true justice. Sarah admits that her reasons aren't that deep and that she just despises ugly things, especially the ugly heroes drowning in greed and have no place in her beautiful world. Ryan considers her a freak, but one that's bought her enough time. She pushes a button on the wall and causes a blaring alarm to ring out. That's all it is, but the noise will make it impossible to hear her footsteps while invisible. The researcher circles around her target, aiming to launch an ambush from behind. They looked around, not knowing where the enemy went this time. Ryan sees her chance and takes it by striking Sarah, but is painfully punished with a deep kick to the gut. She's sent crashing into the wall, unable to understand how her footsteps were discerned. It wasn't actually sound that the leopard woman was tracking, but her scent, which exceptionally reeks of an ugly and vulgar stench. Beaten and unable to move, Ryan falls limp with defeat. Sarah twirled around to give Kazu his turn, but he just blankly stared at her. Like the others, he had an ominous scent, but one that smelled of blood. Kazu insists that he isn't a hero and has nothing to do with Ryan. Even so, Sarah can't just ignore the stench that's pouring out of him. Deep inside, Rascal smirked, amused that his power simply refused to be contained. The vampire's antics annoys him, but that small tick is an opening that she doesn't let slip past her. She charged in and launched a powerful kick, one that he caught with a single hand, reminding her not to get too arrogant. Arguing that he might want to take his own advice, she spun fast, using the ankle he's gripping as an anchor, and unleashes another strike. He sent flying this time and is nearly knocked unconscious. It's surprising how easily he fell victim to that, but he wasn't done yet and merely wanted to avoid fighting her if possible. The Scarlet Blade is summoned once again. Now, all those in his way have to pay the price. With the ominous scent of blood going wild, he was finally showing his true nature. She gets ready to finish him off beautifully. A seemingly unending barrage of strikes is unleashed, and he barely dodges each one. However, he makes an attempt to counter so slowly that Sarah uses it as an opening to plant a deep punch into his body. Instead of hurting him, she's surprised by the sensation as she feels a sticky liquid pulling her closer to his body. She couldn't move, no matter how hard she tried, and soon realized that her opponent was doing it on purpose. The blade was raised above her, and she can't dodge in time. Kazu swung his blade down, but stopped right before it reached her shoulder. Understanding her confusion, he undoes his ability and says he isn't mindlessly fighting for the thrill of battle. He'll kill his main enemies and wipe out the Hero Association, all to rescue his sister who was taken away by them. Hearing his reason, Sarah stands up and asks if he's the one who's been defeating heroes along besides her. Asked what would happen if he is, she advises him to stop, as continuing to do so would only leave him dead. However, he'll neither stop nor die until he's saved his sister. His determination and stubbornness irks her, and she sighs in disappointment, thinking he was a bit beautiful for a moment. Vaguely saying that she must be the only one who understands him, her ears suddenly perked up, hearing several footsteps coming their way. Not wanting to be caught, she runs and encourages him to follow. Later on, Sarah offers him a drink and apologizes for hitting him so much, but a can of soda barely covers all the beating she dealt. She's decided to ignore the sinister smell leaking out of him for now, which she sarcastically says is a big help. Since they're already at it, he has another question he'd like to ask. Given her strength, looks, and sense of justice, why doesn't she just become a hero? A long time ago, she was scouted by a well-known hero. He offered to market her as his partner, but only if she spent a night with him. She would have gotten fame and money, but it wasn't something she could do. After all, who'd want to kiss vomit on the side of the road? Just like that, she told him off, and he just looked at her, already prepared to blacklist her from the industry. Nobody believed her. Kazu supposes that there were other ways to handle it better, but even she has limits. He finally smiles, acknowledging her as a fine woman. The sudden compliment makes her turn and blush, but she regains her confidence and just says that she already knows. With this, she stands up and walks away, telling him to remember her name well. In the middle of an office, a news broadcast reports on the criminal targeting heroes. A hero smirks upon hearing this. Surrounded by fallen men, he smiles in amusement, saying things are finally getting interesting. He, Dragon, was ready to play the unbeatable hero's part. Back at the cafe, the same report on the hero hunter played on the television. Serving his partner a cup of coffee, Aji says he didn't expect anyone else to be crazy enough to fight heroes alone. Sarah was definitely a weird one, but she wasn't a bad person. Nonetheless, he refuses to team up with her and drag innocent people into his quest for revenge. On another note, there are rumors of an anti-hero group composed of ability users. The broker doesn't know about their goal yet, as he hasn't dug that deep. Kazu is advised to check it out, but he's someone who doesn't need allies by his side. Still, he'd like to see how they plan to fight, so he heads out to meet them. At a random warehouse in the city, he casually opened the door and entered, surprising a bunch of people inside. Naturally cautious, they questioned who the uninvited visitor is. He's disappointed to see that Sarah isn't there. Just then, a man came up to his face asking if he knew what type of group they were. They're a bunch of people who want to shut heroes up for good. Confirming it, the man takes a deep breath and blows cigarette smoke onto his face. Kazu warns him against doing something so rude unless he wants to get killed. Hurt by the arrogant brat, the man flicks his cigarette away and jumps back while holding the chains wrapped around his body. He swings and launches it at the newcomer, determined to teach him a lesson, but the steel links are broken apart before it could even reach its target. They clattered to the floor, and all Kazu needed to handle him was a small wound. The idea that he's a spy there to figure out their plan floats in their minds. Hearing this, he's warned against lumping him in with the pathetic heroes. As the fight was about to intensify even more, Dan stepped in, advising his comrade to walk away before he regrets it. He smiles and approaches the newcomer, already concluding that he must be the hunter everyone is talking about. Seeing him shrug it off, he does the same and moves on since an additional member just works to their advantage. Kazu says he has no intention of joining and just wants to see how they'll carry out their plan. Since he's so determined to hear how they're going to fight the heroes, Dan reveals the idea of causing havoc in the busy streets where they'll have no choice but to help. An arrogant hero would show up and be crushed by someone blending in the crowd. That said, heroes are rotten and might not even show up to save the innocent. If that happens, they can just blame the heroes and destroy the public's trust in them. Kazu finally understands their plan enough and sighs at their disappointing idea. They're going to use civilians without any qualms, but he wants no part in that. Letting him go after hearing their plot is not an option, although he still is a great asset. As such, Dan challenges him to a one-on-one where losing would have him join their group. If he wins, then he'll be allowed to go home in one piece. Either way, they have no intention of letting him go peacefully. Kazu powers up and gets ready for the unavoidable fight. His sword is revealed to them for the first time, but it doesn't even faze Dan, who just shows a bunch of balls between his fingers. Gripping them tight, he suddenly threw them at the enemy. He managed to dodge, but the spot behind him suddenly exploded with immense power. Outside, someone passing by senses the tremors from the explosion and has his interest piqued instantly. Kazu is surprised by the unexpected explosives. His opponent's power is to turn everything he touches into a bomb. He leapt high above his target and scattered a bunch of bombs around the area. Most of the damage is light, and it'll be all right as long as he doesn't get hit directly. While charging forward, he finds Dan suddenly appearing beside him. Reading his moves completely, he turns to swing thinking he has the advantage at this distance, but the pyrotechnic was already expecting it. He is shocked that the man saw through his moves. They are about to clash again when Draco arrives and breaks them apart. The hero reminds them that they should not forget what their powers are for, especially since they are both gifted. He adds that since they are powerful, they should become heroes who can protect everyone and bring peace to humanity. Remembering his sister, his anger toward the heroes reignites, and he states that heroes are nothing but rotten scum. He swings his sword at Draco and declares that heroes are his enemies. The hero smirks, recognizing him as the one they call the hero hunter. Kazu does not confirm this and continues to attack. Suddenly, a chain wraps around the hero's arm. The man from earlier is watching from the sidelines, and although the attack is not part of the plan, he can tell that this is the perfect chance to annihilate some heroes. The other hero annihilators attack Draco, all at once trying to finish him. Despite this, he easily overpowers them and shifts his attention back to Kazu. The man breaks the chain wrapped around him. Meanwhile, Dan throws bombs at the hero and traps him in an explosion. H smiles manically thinking that he has won. To his shock, Draco is already beside him without a scratch. Dan gets rattled by the hero's speed and erratically throws bombs at his enemy. Draco mocks him, telling him to aim better so he can hit him. Suddenly, a group of teenagers opens the gate to the hideout after hearing the explosion. Because of this, the man has the opportunity to attack them as the hero becomes distracted. Draco quickly jumps in and blocks the attack with his body, injuring himself in the process. The man celebrates after seeing his attack connect, calling the hero foolish for protecting the citizens. Draco states that he is not foolish and is a loyal hero who aims to protect the innocent. The man and his group find him irritating and decide to finish him once and for all. However, despite their combined efforts, Draco remains the strongest and defeats them at once, even though he is wounded. After dealing with them, he shifts his attention back to Kazu. Kazu shoots him with his blood power, but he easily dodges. With this, Kazu starts running away from the hero. He looks at Dan and thinks that he risked his life to let his comrade escape. He presses the man's head to the ground with his foot, thinking that if Kazu had not dodged that knife, the explosion would have hit him head-on. He stops himself that he will not let Kazu escape again. Meanwhile, in his residence, Kazu is asked by Rascal why he did not fight. Kazu confesses that he feels Draco is a decent hero, so he did not hurt him. However, Rascal points out that a real hero will eventually stand in his way, so it is better to deal with him immediately. In this case, Kazu will have to end Draco when the time comes. Rascal hopes that this hesitation will not get him killed in the future. Meanwhile, at the Hero Association headquarters, the director gathers the heroes to discuss the recent hero hunter incidents that everyone has been talking about. He orders them to catch the hero hunter and put an end to his rampage. Layla steps forward and volunteers for the mission, vowing to kill the threat to the heroes and humanity. Kazu walks around an area of dilapidated buildings, just as Aji told him during their meeting. The area is said to be a meeting point for drug smuggling and corrupt heroes. He continues, searching the area for any signs of illegal activity. Just then, he stumbles upon a man crouching by himself. He checks on him, but the man immediately attacks using serpents. The creatures bite him, and he activates his power to protect himself. He swings his sword and is about to strike the man when someone attacks him from behind. When he looks back, he is surprised to see Draco wielding his staff and swinging it in his direction. He dodges just in time, but is shocked when another hero arrives and pounces on him. The hit connects, and the impact violently throws him away. Hero Tony is impressed to see Kazu get back up even after taking a hit from his hammer. Now, Kazu is facing 4 heroes and is helplessly cornered. Layla tells Peter that he should have finished the hero hunter using his pythons. Peter defends himself, saying that the man is quite agile, but at least he created an opening for them. Draco addresses Kazu, stating that he knew he was the hero hunter everyone had been talking about. Kazu wipes his sweat away, realizing that he is being ambushed. His attention shifts to hero Layla, and he is surprised to see a woman among the heroes. She attacks him, and he tries to evade the strike. However, his body begins to feel heavier, and he remembers being bitten by the python earlier. This makes it difficult for him to dodge Layla's attacks. He realizes that he is in a grave situation and needs to retreat. As he is about to escape, a bullet strikes his chest, aiming his gun at him. With this, Kazu drops unconscious to the ground, completely at the mercy of the surrounding heroes. Helpless, he berates himself for being defeated without even saving his sister. Rascal understands his sentiment and tells him that he will not let him end here. He will let him see what pure terror is. Kazu suddenly overflows with power. Blood envelopes him, and he transforms into Rascal. The heroes are shocked by the transformation. The mighty vampire stands before them. The sniper hero tries to shoot him again, but the vampire easily shields himself. Rascal looks at Alex and flies to his position. Tony tries to warn the sniper hero, but Rascal is faster and kills Alex in an instant. As the hero drops dead to the ground, the others feel threatened. Rascal smirks in triumph, as after hundreds of years, he finally has a real body again. To test it, he looks forward to fighting the heroes. Draco shouts to the other heroes to be careful, warning them that the one they are facing is formidable. However, Tony finds it thrilling and attacks the vampire. Rascal is thrilled as well and acknowledges that if he had taken a direct hit, he would have been injured. Tony swings his hammer at him, but the vampire stops it with a single finger. While fighting Tony, Peter appears from behind and attempts to restrain Rascal with his pythons. The creatures manage to bite him, but he manipulates his blood and repels both the serpents and Tony. He expresses disgust that they would try to use poison on him when he is the master of blood. Seeing the others defeated, Layla attempts an attack as well, but he easily throws her aside. He laughs at his enemies, stating that heroes of this generation are weak and no match for him. Draco charges at him and slashes with his weapon, but Rascal swiftly evades every strike. He acknowledges Draco's technique, but states that he is still far ahead of him. He snatches Draco's weapon and points it at Layla's throat, threatening to kill her if anyone moves. When the heroes hesitate, he mocks them for their weak hearts. He then spins the weapon and drives it into the ground, pinning Layla's cape and trapping her in place. The impact causes the dilapidated building behind them to sway dangerously. Draco warns the others. With a vile expression, Rascal shouts that they should hurry and save her or lose another hero. The building begins to collapse with Layla still trapped. Sweat forms on her forehead as she watches the structure crumble. She closes her eyes, waiting for the worst. At the last moment, Draco shields her with his own body. She asks if he is okay, and he assures her that he is an invincible hero. Inspired by his selflessness, she rushes toward the enemy, but Rascal grabs her head and smashes it into the ground, mocking her for being weak and boring. He walks toward her menacingly, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. However, he is shocked when he realizes that the hero before him is none other than Layla. The other heroes are confused about why the vampire stopped moving. Rascal grabs his chest and starts fighting with Kazu inside him. He glares at Layla, thinking that it is her fault that Kazu is resisting him. Because of this, he decides to kill Layla and mock Kazu. He activates his blood technique and shoots it toward the hero. Draco rushes toward Layla, aiming to shield her from the attack. To their shock, Kazu transforms back into himself and is the one who absorbs the blow, saving Layla at the last minute. The two stare at each other at close range, with Layla dumbfounded by the realization that the hero hunter was Kazu all along. Meanwhile, Kazu endures the pain in his arm. Draco is shocked as well upon seeing Kazu in his human form. Tony suddenly appears and strikes Kazu, sending him flying and knocking him unconscious. The hammer hero is satisfied that he has taken down the hero hunter, but Layla appeals to him, saying that he is being too harsh. Tony reminds her that Kazu is dangerous since he is working with a vampire and points out that she should not defend the hero hunter. He then decides to capture Kazu while he is still unconscious. Just then, a presence makes herself known, scolding them for ganging up on one man who is already down. When Tony looks up, he sees Sarah standing atop one of the dilapidated buildings. She looks at them with disgust, calling them hideous. She jumps down and lands in front of them. She explains that she initially caught Kazu's scent and was planning to greet him, but she did not expect to find him beaten by a group of good-for-nothing heroes. Realizing she is with him, Peter immediately sends his pythons to strike her. Sarah easily blocks the attack and grabs the creatures, stopping them from moving. Tony grips his hammer and charges toward her, but she evades him and runs past the heroes at incredible speed, picking up Kazu along the way. She would love to deal with the heroes, but her priority is saving him. She adjusts her footing and escapes. Draco grips his weapon in frustration as she gets away. Layla then confesses that she knows Kazu. Layla explains that she is neighbors with Kazu and thought he was a good person. Draco points out that evil always disguises itself, so she must not be fooled. He tightens his grip on his weapon and rushes after Sarah, intending to catch her. However, Tony stops him and strikes him with his hammer, leaving him unconscious on the ground. Just then, another hero, Silver, appears, shocking Layla. He states that they will deal with the hero hunter themselves and orders Layla and Draco to return to headquarters. He explains that they are ineffective due to their excessive sense of justice, so the remaining 3 heroes will handle Kazu. Layla stands her ground, telling him that she will not allow him to further stain the name of heroes with his warped sense of righteousness. Silver smirks and asks if she even remembers the moment she became a hero. This confuses her as she cannot recall it clearly. He hints that her memories were altered. She begins to tremble as she realizes she cannot remember fragments of her past. Silver flashes a sinister smile and reveals that she is merely a clone of another ability user. She is utterly shocked, especially when he confirms that she is just a poor imitation. He wanted a loyal pawn, but she developed emotions and became difficult to control. She is nothing more than a failed experiment with a worthless sense of justice. He believes heroes do not need unnecessary ideals, so he intends to dispose of her. Layla feels her world crumble beneath her as she realizes her entire life has been a lie. It turns out she was never a hero after all. She breaks down as everything she believed in shatters. Silver reiterates that she no longer has value and has no place among them. Suddenly, a spear flies towards Silver. He effortlessly catches it with his bare hand and throws it back at Draco. Draco laughs, remarking that old men like Silver are always hated because of their nonsense. Silver expected this reaction, knowing Draco has a strong sense of justice and would never accept cloning. Draco admits that he does not care about cloning itself, but is angered that someone is suffering because of it. He reminds them that a hero's duty is to save people and remain loyal to that responsibility. He turns to Layla and tells her that she is a hero as long as she believes in justice and protecting others. Being a clone does not change that. She wipes away her tears, thanks him, and regains her resolve. Although relieved that she is better, Draco acknowledges that their situation is dire. They're facing 3 heroes, and fighting them will not be easy. Layla quickly forms a plan and tells him to run when she gives the signal. Silver senses something amiss and orders the others to crush them. The 2 heroes charge forward. Layla takes this as her cue and fires her power at Draco, launching him far away from danger. Silver laughs at what he calls her pointless sacrifice and mocks her weakness. She responds that she is not weak for being a true hero and that self-sacrifice is part of the role. She walks towards Silver with unwavering determination. Sarah tends to Kazu's wounds. He flinches in pain as she scolds him for how recklessly he fought the heroes. She calls him insane for taking on so many opponents at once when he could have died. He tells her that he was ambushed and warns her to be careful as well. A knock suddenly sounds at the door, and she wonders who could have found their location. Kazu remembers Layla and volunteers to check. He looks through the peephole, but sees no one. Carefully, he opens the door and finds an injured man standing outside. The man looks familiar, and he realizes it is Draco. Draco tries to provoke him despite his battered condition. Kazu grabs him by the collar and demands to know what he wants. Draco replies that he believes Kazu is someone he can rely on, which only angers Kazu further. Sarah intervenes and smacks Kazu on the head, telling them to go inside before they draw attention. Inside, Sarah tends to Draco's wounds, carefully applying ointment to his face. Her actions confuse him since he is still a hero and therefore their enemy. Unfazed, she points out that he is simply an injured man. She asks if the other heroes caused his injuries, and when he confirms it, she laughs, remarking that this only proves how corrupt heroes truly are. Kazu interrupts and asks why Draco came to them. Draco recounts what happened and reveals that Layla is a clone. Sarah exhales, disgusted that the heroes would even resort to cloning. Draco feels responsible for Layla's capture as she sacrificed herself to let him escape. Desperate to save her, he bows deeply and asks for their help. Sarah finds it absurd that they would interfere in a conflict between heroes. Draco agrees and prepares to leave, but Kazu stops him. He recalls Draco mentioning that Layla is a clone of a certain ability user. When Draco confirms it, Kazu thinks of his sister, Saya, who could manipulate appearances. He remembers how she once proudly showed her ability, claiming she would become a useful hero like their father. The memory shifts to the moment she was captured because of her unique power. Since then, he has had no leads on her whereabouts, but now he finally has one. Determined, Kazu decides to work with Draco to save Layla. Sarah calls him insane for trusting a hero and warns that it could be a trap leading to his death. Kazu does not care. He is willing to face any danger if it brings him closer to his sister. He leaves with Draco. Meanwhile, at the Hero Association, Layla is bound. Silver plans to use her as bait to lure Draco back. A guard suddenly bursts in, urgently reporting that Draco has been spotted outside. Silver smirks in satisfaction, believing Draco came to save her. However, the guard adds that Draco is not alone and has brought 2 unknown allies. This alarms Silver. He looks out the window and sees Draco, Kazu, and Sarah annihilating every hero who stands in their way. The 3 successfully infiltrated the headquarters. Draco asks Sarah why she is helping, too, when she despises heroes so much. She looks at Kazu and simply states that she cannot ignore someone as genuine as Kazu. She keeps wanting to save him. They eventually arrive in front of a huge steel door. When asked about it, Draco reveals that it is a training ground for the heroes. They open the door and are greeted by Tony and Peter. The 2 heroes are fired up and look forward to finishing the fight they started earlier. Determined to finish the fight immediately, Kazu activates his power. Draco stops him and tells him to calm down. He brings up that since they're only against 2 heroes, they should focus on one first. They then charge toward Peter. Draco swings his weapon at the hero and shouts at Kazu to deal the final blow. Kazu runs toward their direction, but to his surprise, the man steps on him and uses him as leverage to escape. He has only one goal in mind, and that is to save Layla since she is a vital clue to him, bailing out on Draco and putting him in a tight spot. Peter tries to stop him using his pythons, but Sarah interferes, letting him escape. The man calls her foolish for letting the man go, noting that they wasted their advantage of fighting 3 versus 2. She replies that fighting with a 2-on-3 disadvantage is not fair and that she hates that. She would rather fight a losing battle than be unfair. The hero scoffs at her unnecessary sense of justice and commands his pythons to attack her. She swiftly evades the creatures and charges at Peter, kicking him right in the face. She delivers another blow with her foot, finishing the fight with the hero and leaving him knocked out. She looks down at the hero for underestimating her power. She does not seek superiority and only aims to show how corrupt heroes are. While she is preoccupied, Peter lets loose one of his pythons. The creature wraps itself around Sarah's foot. As it is about to bite her, she jumps and spins midair, peeling the python away from her foot. Peter is shocked by her insane leg strength. She appears behind him and gives him another violent kick. Angered, the hero immediately gets back up. This time, his aura is more.